food out, we're good. Don't mind.
That's why the food came later.
Okay, questions? Anything?
Did video clarify anything? Make you see anything differently from Saturday?
We didn't coach very good. Their concepts were better than what ours were. And I mentioned this to you the other day, and I'm not sure you guys understood. Somebody asked a question, one of you guys. What do you mean by coaching? So each week, and I thought I should have clarified that. Each week, we have special teams, offense and defense. We watch tape. We come up with plans. We think that that's best to attack our opponent, and they do the same thing, right? So you go into games. Sometimes when the game's over, you're like, well, let me say this. Most of the time, when the game's over, it's not swayed one way or the other in a big way. It's just kind of normal. So it's not outcoached or outplayed. It's just kind of football. But sometimes when we finish games, I don't think we did a very good job. And I guess that's kind of what I meant. I mean, to simplify it a little bit.
If you were Dana, and what they did offensively was pretty much up Dana's wheelhouse. Are you looking at that and saying, okay, here's the plan, guys. We're gonna do what UCF did?
Different approach. Some similarities, but a little bit different in the way they get to things. Their system offensively specifically is a little bit different than what other teams do, but they will watch tape like we do and look for things that could help them and give them an advantage based on weaknesses they think they see, yes, from that standpoint.
And with Donovan Smith, you're gonna get another quarterback that can do a little bit of what John Rice Plumlee did, and that's combine the run with what he
Right,
did.
he runs it pretty good. They're good at that part of it, quarterback counter, things like that. So he's an effective player, an effective runner from that standpoint.
What do you think of what UCF did defensively? Because when I started looking at it, I was wondering if they found some rocket science way to stop Ollie. They just kind of mixed it up and kept bringing that safety different times.
Same thing we've seen the last few weeks. We just didn't execute. We got into a point where we really needed to be balanced, and then rain came and we couldn't be balanced, so extra guy in the box a little more. They did a good job, and they took advantage of the situation, but not anything scheme-wise that was out of the ordinary.
Tough when you run into a hot defensive tackle. That kid, the Hunter kid for them.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 tackles for a defensive
Yeah.
one tech is
Played good.
a big day.
Yeah, I mentioned to you guys a week ago, they're a pretty good team now. They're dangerous at certain times and certain things they do, and they went X number of games in the middle of the year and didn't have their quarterback. And so once he's up and running, they're a different team.
Do you worry at all about UCF giving a blueprint to other teams, or do you just say other teams were doing that anyway, it's just a matter of execution?
No, it's kind of what Robert's asking. There's nothing looking at it on tape schematically that's different than what we've seen the last month.
Okay.
Was Saturday an important learning experience for Brian Nardo?
Well, anytime that you finish the game, they got more points than you, should be a good learning experience, and try to identify why and what happened. But I don't know that would be necessarily, are you talking about because of the points they got?
Just because he was going up against a really good offensive line on the other side, and probably saw some
well,
things
sure,
against
yeah. I mean, I think Malzahn's really good at what he does. Their concepts are really good. One thing that contributed to it was the turnovers. We had 4 turnovers, and then we got into a little bit different kind of all-out attack in the middle of the third quarter just to at least give ourselves some kind of chance to win. So that didn't help. But they should. It's just like I told them Sunday morning. You grade the tape, we look at things that can help us for preparation against Houston, and then we study this in the off season to help us when we play them again. We know they play them again in a couple of years, and they're going to do the exact same thing they did. He's done the same thing for 15 years. From that standpoint, yes, it's a good learning situation.
Is there any part of you that thinks maybe it's a good thing, at least a little bit, that the praise for Ollie Gordon has gone down?
What?
The praise for Ollie Gordon has gone down. Is there any part of you that thinks, oh, maybe that's a good thing to kind of recenter him?
I don't know. I don't keep up with that. I mean, I've mentioned being concerned about any young person that gets the accolades they get now in society today with all that. You know, and Ollie's flamboyant and social and likes all that stuff. So I've been concerned about that from day one for anybody. But that part of it, I don't know, you know. I just need him to practice well.
When things got sideways in September, Mike, you said the message to your assistants was, you guys need to coach your ass off. Hasn't been very good, it needs to be better. You know, let me take care of the rest. Is that a similar message you delivered coming out of Orlando to that group?
Well, the message I told them is that the team has a choice how they want to react in situations like this. I don't really control them emotionally or mentally because they're young people, they make their own decisions. I can tell the coaches what to do. So I've told them what to do. And then you hope that our culture is deep enough that the players will react and do well. The first thing I'm going to tell the players in the meeting today is I'm very appreciative of the effort they gave. They played hard until the last snap, really hard. Everybody, both sides of the ball. So I'm going to tell them that first because that's what we ask them to do. Sometimes it sounds funny, but wins and losses are important, but the pedigree and the culture of an organization should be that you're going to play hard no matter what happens, anytime, any place, anywhere during the games, and they did that. So that part was a bonus for us. And they stayed together. There's no finger pointing at all, anytime, any place, which is a bonus. So I would suspect they'll react well today when they come over.
Because of the culture, does that make you feel more positive that the message to your assistants, because a lot of these assistants have been with you for as long as they have, right? Help build the culture you're talking about, that you know that'll be received and that in fact things will get better.
Right. You talking about
The coach,
the coaches?
your faith.
I'm not worried about the coaches.
Your
They're
faith in them
programmed.
to
They're
fix.
programmed. I'm not worried about those guys. And I can control them, unfortunately for them. So they're gonna do what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it in their own personality. That's their job. They get paid to do that. So I'm not worried about them one bit. And I really feel good about our team rallying back after watching them after the game, on the bus, in the airport, in the airplane, how they traveled. They did it the right way. Which there wasn't anybody bitching, complaining, pointing fingers, but they also weren't laughing and smiling.
One more thing then as a follow-up, you said there's some things you said this to me in several different areas, things that you had to figure out as a head coach from 2005 when you first started doing it. Is one of those things not overextending to try to fix everything when something goes wrong? I looked up, the first time you lost a game was to Colorado. It was like 34-0, obviously a bad day for the program. I wondered if your inclination coming out of that game was to, I gotta work 24 hours straight to fix everything. Whereas
I didn't
now
know
you
what
can,
I was doing. You're right. That was Gary Barnett was the head coach. They ran a power first play of the game right at the gut for 78 yards and a touchdown. And I also had the flu that day, and I threw up before practice, halfway during the game, halftime, and after the game. And I'd forgotten about that till you reminded me of it. But I didn't know what I was doing back then. I don't even remember what I did. Okay? Now, what you said is right. We didn't play good, they played good, we got caught in a little bit of a perfect storm. As soon as they got ahead and started pouring, we couldn't function offensively. They were still running the ball, their quarterback did some good things, and then we got into an all-out, sell-out defense and offense, and it snowballed on us, okay? But it's not like that we're still not a good football team. We just have to rally and understand the mistakes we made and then also learn from that and then move forward. And that's what I told them. Very simple.
Because after those losses with South Alabama and Iowa State, you simplified things and changed it to a straight downhill run game. Do you think you're going to also need to change some things after this loss against UCF, or is it different?
So we're going to do what we do.
I know it wasn't one of
Just
your,
like kids. Hey, don't quit playing.
I know it wasn't one of your objectives, and there was no scoreboard pressure left, but when you got to the tape, did you enjoy watching Ceci and that backup group, offensive line-wise, and what they were doing on that last?
Yeah, it was good. Seth got a chance to make a few runs, make a cut, and some guys got in there and got to play. The young guys that we put in and played, they played hard.
Quickie
and-
played some of the game, too.
Yeah, Quickie did. Joe didn't practice last week. I mean, I saw Joe last Monday, and the next time I saw him was Friday afternoon. So, Kawicki had to do most of what we needed to get done last week. So it was good to get him in and play.
You see him having some promise?
Do I see him what?
See his potential?
Yeah, he's doing good. Yeah, getting a lot of good reps and working, and he needs to get stronger like most young players do, but he's a good young prospect, move his feet, seems to have some good football savvy.
Mike, on the defensive side, you've had concerns about your secondary because of the youth, but is your pass rush, is your defensive line getting the kind of push that you guys need?
Our pass rush in that game was very average.
Yeah.
And they hit us on some, I mentioned after the game the 50-50 plays in the game. They won most all the 50-50 plays. And it's not just pass, 50-50 blocks, get off a block, make a play. 50-50, make a guy miss, break a tackle, make a play. And the 50-50 throws. We were 0 for 6. So, do we need to refinagle what we're doing? Not really. We just need to keep working on the same stuff that we're doing. We do have some young guys, but they played pretty good the last month. I mean, not too bad. So they'll learn. And our pass rush was average in that game.
How
Big
much
plays.
does their max protect or like getting
I mean,
caught?
we've seen it. We see it all the time. We just, when it got into a 50-50 situation in the pass rush, we were pretty average. When that happens, and the other thing, they hit 3 or 4 big passes. As soon as he let go of the ball, we hit him. Sometimes that happens. Now, we don't want that to happen, but we got to get there a little quicker.
Big plays have been a little bit of a negative theme for the defense at times this season.
You're being nice.
But, okay.
You're such a young, you're nice.
I appreciate you calling me young. That's nice of
Big
you.
plays have been a problem. Big plays have been a problem for us. In the last month, we've stabilized them pretty good against good football teams. So you guys know this, and I'm gonna let you ask your question. I gotta cut you off. Good football teams are gonna make plays. You're not gonna go into a game and just stop people. So you have to minimize them the best you can, but go ahead.
But it sounds like the way you're talking, Saturday's big plays were more an issue of getting beat rather than bust or
Yes.
blown coverage.
Yeah, the 0 for 6 throws, we had a guy on them, right? I mean, one time they got behind us, the other times we were on them. The one they threw with, on the offsides play, he was running side to side, kid came back and caught the ball. It happens, but to answer your question, that was more of just, we were in proximity, they just made the plays. Earlier in the year, we were dropping coverage.
On you guys'
Like the first play of the game, we were in pretty good coverage, right? We went up, they went up, guy made a catch. That's 0 for 1 right off the bat on the 50-50. We couldn't really fault number 11. He's in pretty good coverage.
you guys' win streak, you were scoring early. I think the first drive is like a 5 or 6 straight game streak where you guys have scored. I think every team would want to play from ahead, but how important is it for the way your team is constructed right now that you guys get ahead and are able to play from ahead?
We were rolling pretty good, the first 2 drives, and we had a fumble and a doink interception. We're actually started the game pretty good, so I was pleased with our first 10 plays that we talked about. It's easier to play it from ahead. We know that. Does it guarantee it one way or the other? No, but it just, because then you kind of know that you're in control of what's going on, and maybe you have the chalk last, you get a chance to kind of make decisions because things are working. We don't do this because we have quite a bit of maturity on our staff, and they've been with us a long time, but sometimes coaches get in a panic mode early in the game when they don't need to. They just need to stick with the plan. That's what can happen if you rely too much on what you're talking about.
Like, it looked like all 3 of Allen's interceptions were kind of like tipped and popped into the air. Did you see that on the film? Or
That's
like,
right.
how was his decision making in those moments?
He was fine. I mean, he didn't play his best game. Again, the conditions weren't real favorable for it, especially when you're behind. And then they know you're in the throwing mode. It works against you. And he had some doinks off the helmets and hands and things like that. But it's not like he played bad. He played fine. His decisions, I didn't look at his actual grade, but I'm gonna say his decisions weren't bad at all. Which has been about what he's been throughout the year.
How did he react on the sideline to that? He said there was no finger point stuff, so I'm not saying that, but how did he kind of?
Oh, he's good. He's 24 years old, he's married, he's dealing with a wife. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, he's fine. Now she's gonna be mad at me. Or she's used to dealing with him. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
No, he's fine, very mature.
Because especially right now with the importance of Ollie in your offense, does it make it even harder for you guys when you get into that one-dimensional mode of having to throw the ball?
We're not good enough to be, we need to be balanced, okay? We're a better offense, like most people in the country, when we're balanced, period. Now, we have more of an ability now to be successful in that situation than we did 6 weeks ago. But it's still not favorable for like where we are right now. And most of the teams in this league would be better off if they're like us. Like OU can play from behind some. They've got some firepower. At quarterback's been around. Their offensive line, they can do it some. Some of the other teams in our league that rely heavy on quarterback run, it's not real favorable to be behind because it kind of works against concepts. We're in that same boat. I guess Tech maybe, I haven't watched them much this year, but they kind of have that style of offense that maybe they can come rallying back from 3 touchdowns down. But it's difficult when you're a balanced offense when you get behind by multiple scores.
You say it's not favorable right now. What does it take to, maybe not this year, but at some point to where you can say it is favorable for us, if, even if we're behind multiple scores, we can.
Well, we were playing with a bunch of, we were too deep with a bunch of NFL wide receivers. When you're playing with guys like that, if you can protect a little bit, you can get back in games pretty quick. We're, depth-wise at wideout, we're at the bare minimum right now. We lost 3 receivers at West Virginia, and that's kind of affected us a little bit. Green's back now some, not 100%, but he's back. If we had to play him, we could. He should be better this week. But what I'm talking about is, because if you're gonna play catch-up, you're gonna have to play those guys a bunch, and they're gonna have to run down the field a bunch. So then you have to sub guys in. And right now, we're very young behind the guys that started the games at wideout. That's why it makes it a little more difficult.
On those interceptions with those receivers, could they have helped Bowman in those situations? Or is it more?
Could they, what do you mean?
Like, I don't know if it was, the routes they ran or
Well, no,
the
they
competitive level or.
Well, a couple of them just went through their hands and hit off of them, I mean, I don't know if it's wet or whatever, but sure, yeah, it could have helped him, yes. I think he would, in fairness, he had what I would call one gradable interception. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think that's what I would say is fair.
Okay.
Sometimes it happens, They've made a bunch of really, really, really good catches for him in the last 3 games, right? Number 10's been catching crazy, 17's been catching balls all over the place. So they've helped him some, so sometimes, doesn't work out.
How do you use last year's experience? Last year, you go to Kansas State, have pretty one-sided loss, and then the rest of the season kind of goes as it goes. How do you use that experience?
You're being nice too, like him. So much went downhill.
Yeah. Things went bad the last half of the
That's
season.
right. That's better.
How do you use that experience to prevent that from happening? One-sided loss yesterday, and you got 2-3 games left. How do you kind of prevent that from happening?
So some of that, we had a number of injuries in that middle, the Kansas State deal. And then we had a quarterback that was playing some, not practicing, playing some. That was a mess. I learned a lot from that. I don't think we're in that situation. Like, our injury is about the same as it was a month ago. So we're trying to get a few guys back, but it's not like we just got blanked like we did when we played the 2 Kansas schools last year.
What'd you learn from that, Mike? You said learned a lot from that. What'd you learn from that?
So we were in a difficult situation last year because when Spencer was playing, that gave us a chance to be at our best. But he was hurt all year, so he could never practice. So you play him, doesn't practice, and if he doesn't play good, how much of it is I hadn't practiced? I'm not saying him, but me watching it. Like, it's hard to be a good player at this level if you don't practice. Hartley Dykes is the only person I've ever seen that could do that. Now, he could play as good as anybody in the country. He didn't need to practice. Most people have to practice, and so that was difficult for us. So if I had to do it all over again, then you don't try it. You just got to play who's practicing, maybe. Now, you don't know if that's right either. So it's tough.
We had time to talk on the way home, the radio crew, and one of the things that we the injuries, like you said, are not as big a factor as they were a year ago. Where would you rate your internal leadership? Because that was one of the things we
Oh,
talked
the
about.
guys were good. That's what I said in here. Like,
Yeah.
I was thrilled with the way the team stayed together. That they did a really good job of rallying together. Their halftime, they were awesome. And, you know, we get out and throw right down the field. We stall out on the 9. We get a turnover with 1 interception. You know, I mean, what if we hit 2 touchdowns right there? You know, at least it changed the complexion of the game. But we didn't. But the team, from what you're asking, they've been really good. They were great.
Mike, you guys are still obviously in the race for a Big 12 title game appearance, which you know how, I mean, those are hard to come by. So obviously you want to get your program there, but how do you talk to the guys about that as just the opportunity that is still out there in front of them and what that can mean for this program if you guys are able to
So
get there?
that part's easy for me because they know it. They know everything that's going on, so it's not something I have to bring up to them. That, you would think that would be motivating for them.
Right.
And I've never really talked about things like that. That's just not been my nature, right or wrong. I generally talk about today's practice with them, and then tomorrow I'll talk about tomorrow's practice. Sometimes it will get brought up, and then I'll put the ball in their court. I'll say, you're right. It's up to you guys. I don't play anymore. I just stand around and watch.
Mike, we live in a world on the outside of the big money of college football. You live on the inside of it. But are you still amazed when you see that Texas A&M's willing to pay a guy $77 million to go away?
Yeah.
And how do you grasp that?
I don't know. People were texting me about it last night, because, I mean, of course, I don't know anything going on unless people text it to me, and like I have something, I don't know what to say. It's pretty amazing. I would think that means they have a lot of money. You know what I mean, right?
You know?
So, pretty amazing.
Does
You
that-
go-
Go ahead.
Jimmy Sexton.
Yeah. You don't, OSU doesn't have the money that A&M does. I assume you wish you did. However, it seems like it causes problems as well as solves problems.
You have the advantage of maturity and age that the young people don't. Money causes problems everywhere. Money causes problems in college football, money causes problems at the NFL, money causes problems in marriages, money causes problems with administration and coaches and relationships, money causes a lot of problems. I don't know anything's going on in A&M. I mean, it's not even fair for me to comment because I have no idea what all's going on. But all the rumors that we heard over the last 2 or 3 years, there was a lot of money involved in things through NIL legally. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an interesting situation that has always caused problems, and it always will be. It'll always be an issue.
Yeah, I guess one of my questions is, like, if OSU got mad at you and wanted to fire you, they might do it or could do it, but they wouldn't just think about, we got it, write him a check. Utah's not doing that with Kyle Whittingham. People that sort of have stability and just say, here's our coach, and we're not going to make rash decisions, seem to come out pretty good.
In most cases, there can be some firings that are unjust based on, there's a lot of things going on. And then there's some that are pretty clear cut that we need to make a change. And somebody's gonna make that decision. But what you're saying is right, particularly now with, and I said this a number of times, the people that have a difficult job now is these ADs. Because it's hard to tell what's gonna happen with the portal and NIL, because it's not clear cut like it used to be. Now, you can have a really good portal year and win 10 games, and then everybody feels like we gotta give this guy a new contract, and that portal year runs out in the next 2 or 3 years, and then everybody's going, why did we give this guy a new contract? Or it can go the other way. You can have a somewhat stable program, you can get wiped out by the portal, and then have a couple years where it's not so good, and the coach is probably still doing a pretty good job, and the staff's probably doing a good job. Then you have to make a decision as an administrator. That's why I think it's tough. Okay, am I gonna do this? Am I gonna make a change and pay this guy and pay all his assistants and then they say it's between $3.5 and $5 million to get a new staff. So let's just say it's a $30 million hickey. Do I want to do that? And if I do that, it sure has to be better than it was, or it doesn't look very good. That's the tough thing with ADs nowadays, and it's, a lot of this is going to be driven through the portal and NIL. It's uncertainty of what's going on and how it happens. But I don't know whatever story you're writing, but you're right on with, in most cases, probably going to be just about as good as it is. We just need to try to hit on a few things here and there.
I know Dana was only here for one season with you, but how much did what he brought in offensively influence you, even going forward? And I know you had good OCs after that.
Yeah, so when we brought Dana in because, we thought he was a smart offensive coach, which he is, and, he had experience calling plays, and we knew we had a lot of firepower throwing passes. He had a history with Coach Leach, so that's why we did it. He came in and kind of put terminology in and used the talent we had and just, said, let's just, you can ask him, but he just said, I just need to get it rolling, let these guys play. We would go into games with 12, 15 plays, that's it. Because he knew that we had good players. We didn't want to screw them up. Just let them go play.
And within that, that sort of set the foundation for what you were able to do with Munkin and Yursich.
Yeah, so we kept a lot of that. Now we integrated running the football when he came here, so, there were some things that I wanted to do that he integrated into our system, his system, and we tied it all together and ended up being pretty good. And then Todd came in and, finagled it a little bit and made it better, and then Yursich came in and learned, and he kind of worked his way through it. And then we've been flexible, right? We can throw it some, we can run it some, we're balanced some, based on who our talent level, or what our talent level is, I guess I should say.
Do you stay in contact with a lot of those guys? A lot of those former coordinators?
I'm friends with everybody, but I don't talk to anybody. So I don't text a lot or whatever. Like, I ran into Yursich when I went up to watch Gage play baseball in Pennsylvania last summer. He was right down the road. So I went over there and visited with him just to see him. And, I see Dana when I'm recruiting in Houston. Munkin, I don't cross paths with him, but he comes here to see his son. So he'll come stay at the house. But I don't talk to people very much. I don't have very many friends like that. People don't like me that much.
So it'll be like amicable, like on Saturday, like it's not gonna be like you're not spitting in his mouth like you were talking about with Boz a few weeks ago, right?
What do you mean with Boz?
2 weeks ago you were saying that you were gonna, he used to spit in his face, he commented.
Back in college?
It's more amicable now.
Yeah,
with these guys that don't coach.
No,
anymore.
Dana coaches ball and does his job. I coach ball and when I'm down in Houston and I go out and there's people there that I go to talk to, boosters and stuff. I'll see Dana there. We sit at a table and visit. We have a good time. Yeah.
What about Houston? Just as obviously first year in the Big 12. It's a place that's got a lot of recruits and obviously a huge area. What's your sense of just what that football program can become in that place?
Gosh, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know what goes on down there. I know they're in a lucrative area. I would think that within a 4-hour drive of that school, they have 200 offers. That's a guess. Somebody might, I don't know. Dana can answer that question. So I think they have a lucrative future from a recruiting standpoint. And I think they have NIL advantages because when you're in a major metropolitan area like TCU, Houston, SMU, and you have a number of high school prospects that leave, let's say they go to Notre Dame or Michigan or somewhere, and then if they want to portal out and come home, we're seeing the studies that we take now are showing that there's a high percentage of kids at portal go closer to home, and there's large numbers. What is Houston? 4 million people, something like that. And so they're getting. I would think they would have decent portal opportunities where players would be somewhere else. Oh, I don't like it. I want to go back home. I'll just play at Houston. I don't know that to be true. I would think there's a chance of that being true.
When you brought Dana in, was part of the attraction for him, besides your good players, he took some of your play action run game. He learned a lot of stuff about that.
Yeah, he brought all his Coach Leach stuff in, and then he saw we had running backs and good fullbacks, and we integrated it together and used it. And it worked, it was good for us.
He's still used
I think the
that.
first game he coached here, we rushed for 300 yards in the first half, right?
Washington State.
Wasn't that Washington State?
Washington State,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we rushed for 300 yards in the first half or something, didn't we?
You still see some of that stuff on his
Well,
tapes from Houston.
he's evolved. I mean, Dana's a smart coach. I mean, he's using tight ends now and fullbacks, and he's, for whatever reason, he's evolved into a little bit different style of offense. And he has the same principles on the outside, but he's changed some things based on, I'm guessing, what his best players were.
What are you doing now? Anything you're doing now offensively that's close to what you were doing with the traditional air raid in 2010?
Well, most of what we do in the throwing game versus just pure zone coverage is the same stuff. Like, whenever we play games and the next day, at night, like, what is today, Monday? Last night, Kale will call, and he can communicate with me on routes we run, because it's the same stuff. He says, y'all ran 93, and you ran 97X and this and that, and it's the same stuff, same language, basically. You know, he can tell by looking at it.
With the round robin not being a thing anymore, the tiebreaker scenarios are crazy. We've been wrapping our brains around them. Do you keep track of that? Do you have somebody that keeps track of that
I
for
have
you?
no
Do you know what's
idea.
going on?
I couldn't even tell you what it is. No
Neither
way.
do we.
Yeah.
I mean, because for me, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think or what I know. I just know if we win, it helps. So that's the only thing that I put all my energy into that. I literally have no idea how all that works.
Sort of on what Jenny asked, but you talked about the benefits of Houston. Can it do anything to your brand, OSU's brand, to play in Houston?
Oh, that's good. It's good when we play in
What's-
Texas.
What's the benefit of playing in
Well,
Houston?
just people see who you are. It's marketing, right? I mean, I didn't take marketing, don't know anything about it, but when people see your logo in places that it's beneficial, it can help. We had, there were several prospects that were in the Orlando area that wanted to come to the game. We can't give them tickets or anything, but they had contacted us because they didn't know the rules. You know, hey, can we get recruit tickets? And we had to say, well, we don't give recruit tickets on the road. We can't do that. But the point being, because we were going there and playing there, there was interest in watching us play.
Yeah.
So that's what happens in that situation. And Houston is a more prominent area for us.
By the way, 7.3 million in Metro Houston.
Okay, so I was off. 4 million is the state of Oklahoma. So,
Barry's
but-
gonna
but
fact
you
check you there
realize-
too.
Yeah, you realize that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
So, so really, it's probably 9 million. The young guys are going.
Anything else?
Good? That made you nervous, didn't it? All right.